Good morning, everybody. Ori Spado here, Stories with Ori. Today, I am honored to have a gentleman that I met in Lompoc Prison, Lou Ziskin. Perhaps you heard about him already, but do you know what the story is? Today, you're going to hear the whole story. Lou, say hello to everybody. It's great to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too, Ori. Hi, everyone out there. Hope you enjoy our little walk down memory lane today.
Today, folks, we're going to be talking about Lou, where he came from, how he ended up, and then afterwards, stay tuned because you're going to want to hear real prison stories that you could only hear from Lou and I, and we're going to tell you what Diddy really is in store for. So stay with us. Thank you. Lou, you and I met in Lompoc. I remember that very well. You came from Otisville. But tell the audience, where were you born, Lou? You were born not far from here, right?
I was born here in the Scientology Center in Hollywood. Back then it was Cedars of Lebanon.
Holy crap. That was Cedars of Lebanon then?
Yeah, before Cedars opened where they're at now, that's where they were at before.
So that's where you were born, Cedars of Lebanon.
Yeah, in 1969.
Man, I didn't know that. 69.
Yeah.
You know, I moved out here in 1971. You were 2 years old.
Yeah, the year my brother was born.
Holy right. So, Lou, I spoke to your father a few times. I remember when I got out of prison, he wanted to come to see me, and I recall your father always carried a gun. Does he still do that?
My dad carries a gun wherever he goes, except when I'm around.
Huh?
Whenever I'm around, he puts the stuff away because, I'm a convicted felon.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he's always carried a gun.
I
his whole
know. He
life.
and I were supposed to get together.
Yeah.
And because he carried a gun, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But tell the folks, all right, you went to school here and where Hollywood, right?
Oh, I got thrown out of a few schools. I went to Gardner Street Elementary first, and that was fine. But then the busing thing started, and all the parents panicked. So I went to private school in fourth grade, Hillel Hebrew Academy. And I was there until sixth grade, where I got thrown out. I had an epic day where I beat up David Fish, who was his dad was a huge donor to the school. Me and my brother were, we were there on financial aid. Like, there's all kinds of Jews, but we were the broke kind, and believe it or not. And so one of the top donors to the school, his older son, used to pick on my brother, and I beat him up in the bathroom, flushed his head down the toilet, and his glasses went. And then I was back in class about 10 minutes later, and there was this teacher there, Miss Mazor, who had just these huge tits, and she called me up to the board. And everybody had been talking about her tits all year, and you're all, sixth grade after a fight. And I grabbed her tits.
What?
Yeah. So it was,
You were in sixth grade, you graduated.
yeah, it was a pretty famous day for Hillel Hebrew Academy. I mean, two things, they both happened within half an hour, and that was the end of me there. And then, I went to John Burroughs Junior High. Then I went to Orville, got thrown out of there. Then I went to Orville Wright Junior High, thrown out of there. Then Westchester uh, High, thrown out of there. And then my family sent me to a boarding school in Northern California called the Cascade School. And that was like basically for fucked up rich kids and court orders, which I was neither. And it was one of these, you see them talk about it now, these therapy schools where you sit around and in rap sessions and just say horrible things to each other. And but it was boring. It was in the middle of the Cascade Mountains. I shouldn't say boring. I mean, it was pretty wild. But it was in the middle of the Cascade Mountains, and they were like, "Look, if you can escape from here, then you have all the survival skills you need." And a couple kids tried. Most of them didn't make it. And I ended up doing 4 years of high school over in 2 years. Honor roll, dean's list. There was just nothing to do. So that's what I did.
So you finished high school.
Oh, yeah, finished high school and then went to USC. and dropped out of there pretty quickly after realizing that I could make money without school.
What is it with USC that guys become big drug dealers from there? I
Uh,
mean,
well, I think there's a lot of money at that school. So when you come from a place where you don't have a lot of money, and then you see kids with really a lot of money, more, I would imagine, than other universities, psychologically probably the desire starts. Like here's kids that are driving, the latest cars, Porsches. The new Mazda RX-7 was a big car at the time. I mean, stuff that was just never within my reach anyway. And suddenly I'm seeing them, like tangibly seeing them in people who are at school. So you start thinking like, okay, I want my piece of the fucking American dream.
damn. There's something about USC, I tell you. So, folks, watch out if you're going to send your child to USC.
Yeah, I mean, USC, you got to be good in sports, have money. I mean, you start with the peer pressure stuff, right? The in crowd, out crowd.
Right.
So if you're just a broke kid who's, doesn't have any physical talents or attributes and, maybe might be smarter than average, you're not really going to be in the in crowd, and it starts right away. I think this happens in a lot of universities, though. The social pressure starts right away. And USC, it's a lot more money based than maybe other schools.
Man. And that's where you started getting into drug business?
Yeah, well, I was selling weed to, I was selling weed at SC, and rush week comes and everybody's trying to get into a house, and I'm being invited to like the DG and Tri-Delt sorority houses at being called at two, not invited, being called at 2, 3 in the morning for drugs. So I'm getting access that none of these, Greek fraternities are getting. And that was kind of the thing. It was like, okay, I'm making money and nothing to do with anything that I learned in school.
Damn.
And that gave me social access as well. Besides making money, now I had, I learned a lesson. If you have something that people want, that translates to profit and access.
So you went from marijuana.
Yeah, marijuana, and then I did, a few other things. I did some fraud stuff. I did counterfeit traveler's checks later. I did ATM cards when they first came out. I did all kinds of stuff like that. I even dabbled selling a little bit of ecstasy here and there for a friend of mine, but this was way before my time in the drug business. I flew suitcases of weed to Puerto Rico and Boston as a mule, $2,000 a pop plus expenses. It was actually pretty good money back then, in the late 80s. And yeah, I was just kind of whatever. I was one of those guys who was kind of just, I could be up 10 grand today, down 30 grand tomorrow, but somehow, I always managed to pay the rent and the car payment, and I was always ended up fine. Like money, while I really liked it, it didn't, losses come, you're up, you're down, but it kind of always worked out for me.
I got to ask you, Lou, because I've heard of ecstasy. I'm sure all you folks have heard of ecstasy. But I don't know what ecstasy is. What does it do to a person?
So I guess the best way to describe it is if you're getting pure 3,4 methylene dioxymethamphetamine, sorry. 3,4 methylene dioxymethamphetamine is MDMA. If you're getting pure MDMA, the best way to describe it is it's a sense enhancer, meaning colors are brighter. You can almost feel the lines on a pool ball when you pick them up. So you can imagine for human interaction, touching, sexual, stuff like that, there's just a much higher level of sensitivity. And, the sky's bluer and the leaves are greener, and everything's brighter, and that includes, you know, people who are into music. They can actually feel the music rather than just hear it. You know, and that's what I would say is the pure experience of real MDMA, or people call it Molly now or whatever. I've seen that cycle a bunch of times. They want capsules, they want crystal, they only want pills. Like that cycle comes all the time, and every time it gets a different name. But the fact of the matter is 3,4-methylene dioxymethamphetamine is the active ingredient, and it doesn't matter whether it's Molly or ecstasy or whatever. If that's what you've got, then you've got a good, clean experience.
Man.
Now, a lot of the ravers like to have their stuff cut. They used to ask us specifically, like the green triangles that Tamer had. They really liked those to have speed added to them because they wanted these kids up all night doing 5, 6 of these things. So you'd have MDMA cut with a bit of speed, so that would be a little bit edgier experience. I personally didn't like it, but the raver kids who were dancing for 6, 8, 10 hours, they couldn't get enough of it.
Now, Tamer was your partner.
My partner, co-defendant, and best friend.
And was he in Lompoc?
Me and him started together in the pen.
Started.
We were in the pen. He never came to Lompoc Low. I met you 10 years later after I was in. I met you around 2010, right? 2009, 2010, when we were at the FCI together. But me and Tamer, after the case, when we left MDC, we went to USP Lompoc. And so we were there together. Which was interesting because, you know, I was a known associate of both the Mexican Mafia and the Aryan Brotherhood, and Tamer's in the black car, you know, so we kind of had our way there. Nobody could swim upstream, but we could sure swim across stream, and, you know, we had our 15 minutes of fame, you know, because we came out in Vibe magazine. You know, we took a big case, we didn't rat. You know, I took a 30-year sentence, and then I was fighting a life case with Tamer. He was my co-defendant on the CCE where I represented myself, and won. And so I ended up with 15 and a half for everything, and so did Tamer. And so by the time we got to Lompoc, it was, you know, we were a known commodity, and made things a lot easier. You know, I mean, people don't realize, like, I think they're starting to see it now in the state prisons, like the top guys from all the groups, the Brand, the Black Hand, the you know, Bloodline, NCO, all the big gangs. They walk the line in the penitentiary at that time. Like, they're on the line. It's in the state in that time. They were all locked up in Pelican Bay SHU with indeterminate SHU programs, or at Salinas Valley. So, you know, having that obviously made it, having the story made it a little helpful. In fact, Gato and Black Bob, the 2 black hands who had the yard at the time, they both passed. Like, they really were good to me, you know, and they told me point blank, they're like, hey, guys like you rat, you're a fucking Jewish white kid, man. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't, you know, like they said, consider yourself an honored guest here. We're happy to have you, you know, and, you know, they actually taught me quite a bit. I spent quite a bit of time with them, and I got to spend a lot of time with Carmine Persico. We played backgammon every day, and Neil Lombardo, and there was this guy, Al Taco, that had the biggest fucking hands I've ever seen. I think he was out of Chicago. And, you know, talking to these people, because I didn't grow up, well, certainly for years before I got into the ecstasy and ultimately got busted, I was doing criminal activity. I was never raised in a criminal lifestyle like all these other gentlemen were, right? So here, talking to them and learning from them and hearing the different things from them was a very enlightening experience.
When you were in Lompoc with Carmen, I heard that they had ropes put together across the yard so a helicopter couldn't fly in. Is that true?
They had not ropes, there was wires crisscrossing
Wires.
the fence. You know, I mean, Lompoc was crazy. There was this Mexican warden, I forgot his name, But anyway, he came and did our orientation, and you hear when you're at MDC and you hear all these people who've gone to the joint before. I'd never been in a joint before, right? So you hear all these stories, and one of the things they complain about is this orientation thing, right? Where sometimes it takes 2-3 days of going and listening to all the departments tell you what's up. So, you get there, and a few days later or a week later, you go to orientation. Anyway, we get there, and this dude, I swear to God, he must have been a Sereno or Southsider or something, because he used to hang out with the Mexicans on the yard wearing his sunglasses without like all the security of mainline, like, because lunch was like mandatory yard. Like if you were a good, clean dude, white, black, Mexican, like you were going to the yard at lunch. It was kind of show of force or whatever, and you'd have the blacks in one area and the Mexicans and whites kind of mingled a little bit together, but separate on the baseball field. And then you had the others who were pretty much with the blacks. And then crazy thing, you had the Native Americans who were actually aligned with the whites. Talk about an unholy alliance. Anyway, he'd be out on the yard. So he did our orientation, which was crazy because usually the warden gives a little speech and that's it. But that was our whole orientation. He came, he said, "Hey, you guys been out to the yard? Yeah. You seen the gun towers? Yeah. They're going to shoot you if you try to escape? Yeah. Okay, y'all are orientated. Welcome to Lompoc. Protect yourself at all times." And that was the whole orientation. And that orientation class that was with me, like that hadn't happened. Like guys were like talking about that for years.
Well,
that
know that the USP was built to replace
Alcatraz. Yeah.
Yeah. And they got the rock of Alcatraz out in front there.
Yeah.
At the USP.
They do. So when I pulled up on the bus, you could see the camp across the street, right? And I'm looking at that because I actually had camp points. I shouldn't have been in a pen. But the feds, the whole thing representing myself, it got to be so inflammatory between me and them because I was pretty much, I would say that I was an asshole about the whole thing in their eyes because I figured, okay, I got 30 years. I'm fighting a life case. I'm representing myself on the CCE, and I'm just going to go out swinging. And if I go down by my own hand and that's it, I'll be able to live with it. And if I'm able to win, what a great story it was going to be. So I was very antagonistic, and my whole thing was that the government was corrupt. A lot of people don't realize that. They talk about Giglio and Brady and Jenks all the time. But there's a little lesser known fact in the Giglio case that the way the government chooses to engage in a prosecution is a complete defense. Rather, they always look at that stuff for exculpatory material. But I read it, and that was basically my defense. Hey, they tampered with the wiretap, they corrupted this, and they used lying informants in the first trial, which is why they tampered with the wiretap in order to cover that up. And now the wiretap's out in the second trial as part of Tamer's discovery for the CCE. And, that was basically the crux of the whole thing.
And too bad you weren't in MDC Brooklyn with me. You could have been my lawyer.
Yeah.
Because, in a lot of ways, I represented myself, even though I had lawyers.
Well, you're never going to fight. Your lawyer's never going to fight as hard for you as you are because it's not their life on the line. Like, you hear the stories all the time, right? I was out when I was younger, and I knew some lawyers, and you go out, have a cocktail with them or whatever, just socializing. And they tell stories like, hell yeah, I had a client, he just got sentenced to 20 years, today. And, the client asked me, what am I going to do now? And the lawyer laughed. He's like, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go have a drink. I mean, and so, that kind of stuff stuck in my head, right? Like, now when you're in trouble, and it's personal, it's not some abstract human that you don't know. And, you think about those things. So once I got the 30 years and I saw how lawyers operated, I believe they were all conflicted to a greater or lesser degree. And what do I mean by that? Is that their job, nobody wanted to know who my lawyer was when I got sentenced to 30 years. But the dude who gets caught with 10 kilos and gets 2 years, everybody wants to know who his lawyer is. Now, sure, my lawyer got paid 6 figures, 7 figures, right? But they had a 6 week trial. They had to prepare. It was a huge amount of time. This other guy that they get 35 or 50 grand for, 2 debriefings because he's a rat, and a sentencing, and plenty of referrals. Now, if you're a human being and you have a job that requires you to have good relationship with the United States Attorney's Office because 85% of your fucking clients are rats pleading guilty, right? Then are you really going to fight for the one out of, 100 dudes that actually take one out of, 3 out of 100 dudes that actually go to trial?
No.
No, because you're not going to ruin your relationship. So I watched what happened in the first trial, and the lawyers not doing things that I wanted them to do, and so that was why I decided to take matters into my own hands. But I think people, they're disserviced quite a bit by attorneys because, for the most part, I mean, this is true, Ori, you can attest to that. Prisons are full of people that do amazing things. What they're not full of is people that got away with it.
Right.
Right? Most of the guys in there are not the sharpest tool in the shed. Can we agree on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so most of the guys in this. So for most lawyers, they're used to hand-holding idiots through the system. So now when they find somebody smart, they don't recognize that. They do not, they still think that they know better, even if they recognize that you have above average intelligence, right? Combine that with the ego that most criminal attorneys have. And it's funny, you pay them, but you're the client. They're the fucking employee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
they're the employee.
Yeah.
Bro.
And then when you're locked up in prison and you don't get fucking bail, okay? And now you call your lawyer on the phone, you can't get a hold of them.
Yeah.
And they come visit you, maybe if you're lucky, once a month.
Well, this is how they do it. There's a set pattern that they do, and anybody who's been through it can tell you. In the beginning, before you pay them, when you're going to hire them, I'm the only dude who can get you off this. I know the prosecutor, I've beaten, I know this judge, I know this, that, da, da, da. You're lucky you found me and I have time to fucking take the case. Then you pay them, yeah, same kind of thing. Then a couple weeks later, they say, well, I just got your discovery, and there's a couple things in there I didn't know about, but don't worry, everything's fine still, right? Then comes, I had the meeting with the prosecutor, and this is really personal for them, but don't worry, I'm going to have a come to Jesus meeting with them next week. I'm just getting everything in line. Then, well, man, the prosecutor really, really wants you. They want to make an example out of you. And they say this to the big guy and the little guy, right? But, and then the ratting offers come, right? You don't rat. Let's say you go on the path where you don't rat because I don't know any more than the offers because I never did that, right? But you stay on the path that I do know about. Each step of the way, they're holding your hand like a dump truck and dumping you a little further into the system. And by the time you get sentenced a year or two later, right, you're already conditioned to being in there. So when they take their hand away and, they give you that last little bit of hope of appeal, right, they step out, now the appeal attorney steps in, they conditioned you for it from day one, and they do it all the fucking time. That is the recipe. Well, that most of them are scum of the fucking earth.
I don't trust lawyers.
Yeah.
I fired my lawyer, my paid lawyer, right in front of the judge, right in the courtroom.
Yeah.
I fired him. He wouldn't do anything I wanted to do. I wanted to put in a prosecutorial misconduct motion there. He wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So with the help of my lawyer out here over the phone, I put it together. They wrote it up for me here in California, sent it to me, and I started submitting my motions, but not giving them to my attorney. I sent them right to the judge. And the judge is going to deny it because the lawyer didn't send it. But I knew that my judge read everything. And if not for that, because I was facing life just like you were. And I did end up taking a plea deal.
Which judge did you have?
I had Judge Brian Cogan in the Eastern District of, he was appointed by George W. Bush.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you more about that afterwards. But, yeah, people don't understand that with lawyers, and lawyers make a deal. Look, I'm going to get Lou. I'll get Lou to plead to this here, all right? But you got to give my other guy over here less time, okay? The deals they make are crazy because you got to remember, they are all officers of the court.
Yeah.
And
well, not only that, it gets even worse. Like there was, once I was on 7 South for a while in MDC fighting my case, and dudes knew that I was cool. I talked to the blacks and the Mexicans and the white dudes, and I was like, hey, this rat has my prosecutor, separate case. I want to buddy up to him for a week and pull some info out of him. So can we hold off on putting him in the box, right? And so everybody was cool, and so I talked to him and I said, hey man, yeah, I acted like I was his protector, and I'm like, hey man, I'm thinking about ratting. How does it work over there? What happens?
people came to you and said they were thinking of ratting?
No, that's what I told this rat.
Okay.
That's what I told this rat. I said, hey, I'm thinking about ratting. But I want to know how it works over there. And bro, it blew my mind what he told me. He's like, look, man, the way it works, I didn't even know half the stuff. I was like, but that's what I said to him. I said, but I don't really know a lot about the bigger guys than me. What do I do? And he told me like this is what they do. You go in and you rat. And the prosecutor says, no, we already know that, or we this or that or the other thing. And then they leave you out of the room. And then your lawyer talks to the prosecutor on their own. And the prosecutor says, hey, what we want to know about is Ori on 3rd Street on December 12th at 3 p.m. wearing a blue jacket selling 8 kilos of heroin. If your client knows something about that, then we're happy to give him a deal. They basically give him the fucking script, right? And it became so obvious to me that that's how they work, because when you compare my rats' initial DEA 6s and FBI 302s, which is their debriefing statements, they were contradictory. But by the time they got the latest debriefing statements came out right before trial, because they get debriefed over and over and over again. And we're the only Western country that doesn't record those fucking sessions, by the way. If this happens in the UK, they have to record the informant interrogation on audio, right? Australia, same thing.
They don't do it.
They don't do it here. So, and the crazy thing, so then they all align. But the crazy thing is, as you know, you cannot use the DEA 6 or the FBI 302 as impeachment material on the witnesses in the stand. You can only use them to refresh their memory. Do you remember saying this? No? Okay. You're stuck. You got nowhere to go, right? And the other thing you notice is how well coached they are, right? Because if you look at trial transcripts where there's big informant cases, they're all going to show you the same thing. And when the prosecutor is asking the questions, these guys are giving full and complete answers before the prosecutor even fucking finishes the question. When your lawyer gets up there to cross-examine them, they don't remember, no recall, no nothing.
I always said the feds got the best acting school. Hollywood can't shine a candle to it.
Yeah, now lawyers and judges who used to be prosecutors, they all know this.
Right.
They all know this. And anybody who takes the time to go look at trial transcripts, appeal attorneys know this because they see everybody's transcripts. It's fucking crazy. All the way through, even you get into the case law, all the way through, you're going to have case law on both sides. I used to hire, there was a former federal prosecutor, Steve Roseanne. I used to pay him a little bit of money to come fucking talk to me whenever he was in town. He was out of Texas. I hired a couple of the people who were paralegals who'd had clerkships for judges. give them 500, $1,000 when they had time to just come talk to me and pick their brain. And you find out,
They would come to the prison.
yeah, legal visit. And you find out, right? Like, hey, the judge doesn't ask their clerks after an argument, what is the right decision here? What they do is they say, hey, I want to grant this or I want to deny this. Find me the case law to do it. There's what most of Americans don't understand, except for fucking lawyers, is that there's case law on both sides of every issue.
Right.
It's a bullshit fucking thing. This whole stare decisis system. There is literally case law on both sides of every fucking issue. And then there's things that are outright unconstitutional. Like the Supreme Court, they have a legal maxim, right? We avoid the constitutional question whenever possible. Motherfucker, Article 3 of the Constitution empowers you specifically to answer the constitutional question. That's your power. What do you mean you avoid the constitutional question whenever possible? So when you realize this stuff, or you're smart enough to realize this stuff, and you combine it all together, there really is no choice but to represent yourself. And to do it in a way where I don't do it from the law school point of view of procedure and all this and that. I educated myself by reading the Daily Appellate Review, which is all the appeal cases, because I wanted to see what won. And what wins is when they're embarrassed. And that's it. When it's so obvious and embarrassing.
Where were you getting the appellate things? They didn't have them in the...
No,
library?
So one of the things I wanted to know was if there was a newspaper for all these lawyers, because I had a feeling they were all in it together, right? Like, because the more prosecutors charge people, the more defense attorneys make. Now that's a nexus that I could, and they're all part of the bar, and they all become, a lot of them become magistrates and judges. And I'm like, it's like gang members, right? They might be in different sets, but they're from the same gang. Mm-hmm. You can't ignore that part of it. So I wanted any information I could, and there was the Daily Journal was the local newspaper that all the lawyers were there, and you see like they had events and celebrations, and you can find all these prosecutors and criminal attorneys are hanging out together. They're not fucking enemies, they're buddies.
Right.
They're fucking buddies. Well, what I didn't realize when I found that paper and asked my mom to get me a subscription is inside that paper is a little booklet every day of the daily appellate review. And it has all the federal appellate cases, Supreme Court cases, and California Supreme Court cases from all the, and so that was where I got my legal education. I was reading those.
So
I read all of them, the civil ones, the criminal ones, the ones that related to drugs, the ones that didn't relate to drugs. So, you know, one of the other things you learn that's crazy is, in discovery, Brady says the prosecution can't withhold exculpatory evidence, right? But it also says that you never get to go wholesale fishing through their files, right? So you have to be able to identify what they withheld. Think about that for a second.
So you're gonna be
if they withheld it, how do you fucking know, right?
Right.
And the crazy thing is, in civil cases where it's money and not your life that they're trying to take away, you get everything. But in criminal cases, you'd think it'd be the other way around.
Our laws in this country are so obsolete, and I've been saying this since my first interview I ever did, and I've done over 300 of them. And I even try to get other gangsters, but they're all rats.
Yeah.
All right, to get together to try to get the laws changed. But, nobody came forward. And there's, as you know, on YouTube, there's only 3 or 4 of us that never read it.
Yeah.
All right? And
yeah, a lot of guys don't want me on their podcast because they know I didn't rat.
Yeah.
Now some, like Matt Cox, he was cool. He's He's a fucking rat, but he didn't mind at all. He knew my position. I knew his position. Like, but a lot of guys, I won't say their names if I didn't do their show. They just don't want anything to do with me because they don't want to deal with that part of it. Like when I was, did Vlad, I came down on Sammy pretty fucking hard because he's a fucking rat. And
Right.
some of these people out here, people from PBD and big reputable podcasters, like kind of hold this guy up as some kind of example.
I like Pete. Were you on his show?
No, but I watch his show too.
Yeah, he's great. I like him. He's a very smart guy. But
he gives shine to this dude Gravano.
He only interviews rats. I don't know if he's still interviewing gangsters anymore, but I haven't seen any anyway.
Yeah.
But he only interviews rats.
Yeah.
But you know why? Because rats can come out there and lie and lie and lie, just like they did on the stand, because that's the training they got from the FBI and the prosecutors.
Well, yeah, and that's my problem with these dudes in the life. Let's say I never signed on to a criminal organization. I never gave an oath to people like, hey, I'm in this thing, not a prison gang, not a street gang, not any kind of thing like that, right? My promise was basically to my co-defendants, hey, if we get in trouble, I ain't gonna rat on you.
Right.
Right? Like that was me. That's it. But these guys, Gravano in particular, this is a dude who killed 19 people. 19 people. He gave an oath for life, for better or for worse.
Right.
Nobody promises you a happy ending in the criminal world. What the promise is, you're going to make some quick money. And the reason why you're going to make quick money is because you could go to jail and not everybody wants to do this shit. That's what the promise is, right? Nobody promises a happy fucking ending. And 19 times this dude gave unhappy endings, and by his own admission, some of them unfairly. And then when it was his turn...
One was just a kid.
Yeah. And then when it was his turn to have an unhappy ending, right? He violates the whole thing. Yeah, sure, Gotti's a fucking idiot for talking the way he did on tape, or talking like that, period, behind his man's back who put him in. There is no fucking John Gotti without Gravano, right? Like, there just isn't. And Gravano did all the work. And he shouldn't have been talking that way about him. He certainly shouldn't have been talking about bodies that were already buried. Doesn't make no fucking sense from a gangster point of view, right? There's no statute of limitations on that. But bro, you don't get to, like, after you did everything you did in your whole life, just because you got an unfair hand, now none of it applies to you? To me, he's worse than most of these other rats.
I have to agree with you.
He's fucking worse. And people look at him like some kind of thing, I always say this. Everybody wants to be a gangster until it's time to be a fucking gangster.
Until it's
right. and the time, it's so easy when it's easy. And I'm not saying killing people is easy. I'm not saying that that's not a gangster thing. But the true test of any man comes in that moment when you don't have the upper hand. Does your character and integrity stay the same? When something is difficult, do you stay the same, or do you become everything you say you hated because now things are a little bit hard?
Well, one thing that I found from being in a life was it was always the toughest and biggest guys that became the rats. Always the toughest and the biggest.
You know who I found to be the rats? Because I spent a few years at MDC while I was fighting the two cases. Because even after the first case, I got sentenced to 30 years. I had the second indictment for CCE. They were extraditing Tamer from Europe. So I was still in the building rather than going to the joint like most people, because I had the second case. So I had a lot of time to look at this. And to me, it was always when people would say shit like, oh, I could never do that to my boy. It was just a matter of time before they did, because they were not ever protecting their personal integrity. So their mind goes to work. They're going to find an excuse to do it. Oh, I could never do that to him. But the dudes who kept to themselves and we're like, it was a personal integrity thing or morality or whatever you want to call it, thing to them. We're like, that's not who I am. Those guys didn't rap. But when it was people saying, oh, I couldn't do it to this one or that one, that means you're already thinking about it, motherfucker.
Right.
You're already going to work on it. And I noticed that over those few years. I think that was the best identifier of whether somebody was going to turn out good or bad.
How did you get busted?
I got busted from rats.
From a rat?
Yeah. Informants.
What happens to every one of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without rats, they got no case.
They certainly didn't on me. They had an earnet task force. They had Tamer at the top of it. They didn't even have my picture or name or nothing. They didn't know I existed. I was television. I told you this when we were walking the track at Lompoc. I was television educated, Ori. I didn't grow up like you did. I didn't grow up in the life. I grew up with a couple Jewish parents in West Hollywood. Yeah, we were broke, but whatever, right? Like I wasn't in a street gang. I wasn't in any of that stuff. I was television educated, so I learned a couple things from TV. Don't keep money and dope in the same place, and don't talk on the fucking phone. That was my criminal education.
But didn't your case come down? They busted a big plane at LAX?
Yeah, 2.1 million pills.
2.1 million pills.
Biggest
How much
shipment
space
in US
does
history.
2.1 million pills take?
How
The
much?
pills, what, that big?
Yeah, they were all different sizes, but yeah, they're tiny.
And how'd you have them on the plane? I mean, was it a transport plane or passenger plane?
No, so that's a funny story also. This was one of my motions. So we had a dude in Jin. You met my co-defendant at Lompoc.
Oh, he was in my unit.
Yeah, he was in your unit.
From
Min
the
Jin.
Philippines?
No, from Korea.
From Korea. Well,
Yeah.
one of those.
He used to cook, remember?
Yeah.
Great guy.
Great cook.
So he had a connect in Korean customs. And so we would send the stuff from Europe to LA through Korea. So this connect in Korean customs would go into the bonded warehouse, strip the paperwork off, and make it look like the shipment was originating from Korea. Now, why did the shipment go through to Korea? Because other stuff was going to be added to it. So we use stationery because stationery is heavy and nobody's worried about counterfeit stationery, right? It's not like designer stuff. Like a lot of fucking drug smugglers fuck up. They guys were putting bricks of cocaine inside VCRs or, using fucking Nike golf gloves or whatever, right? Like it's retarded because cops are humans. If they're going to open a container, they're going to open a box. If it's a nice and clean fucking thing, electronics where there's taxes, Nike gloves where there's counterfeit, they get bonused for finding these things, right? Besides the drugs. And it's nice and easy. They open up a container that's a shit-stained fucking, 6-foot fucking lead pipe that smells like fucking shit that's going back to Germany for, to be reworked on, right? They're not going to go too far into that, right? Like they're humans. So same thing, stationery, nobody's worried about counterfeit, nobody's worried about taxes, and it has a heavy weight to it like the pills. Paper is heavy. So we would mark it as stationery and send it in. And originating from Korea, there was no red route at that time. And
If I got this, so you got a box of stationery.
18.
Huh?
18 boxes. 18 boxes, I believe that shipment was.
And you have the pills in between the papers?
No, it was just all fucking pills. It was just marked.
Oh, you just marked the stationery.
Yeah, there was maybe some at the top of each box.
Yeah.
But that was not gonna.
Okay.
The key is that the pallet's the pallet, and you don't want it to get attention. So you pay. The taxes are low, but you pay the taxes, right? You do the whole thing. You do everything the right way, and it's the school of fish theory, right? And what do I mean by that? Like you see those little fish that swim in schools. There's millions of them that the whales eat, right? Them swimming together in a school of fish, a million of these fish, doesn't give them any extra defense. They can't fight off anything. What it does give each one, though, is a better chance of surviving just because there's so many. So same thing with cargo. You want to be in that school. You don't want your cargo documents or anything to put you out of the school. You want to be in the school of fish theory and just play the numbers.
Okay, what came first, the bust at LAX or you?
What do you mean? Oh, I got busted months after that.
Oh, it was months after that.
Yeah. The busted LAX was, that. So this was the point. They had Tamer's phone wiretap. So that shipment was DOA. Gets to Paris, getting ready to get on the plane to Korea, to LA. The DEA, Internet Task Force, grabs that fucking pallet, flies it on Air France from Paris direct to LA. So actually, the DEA is who imported those drugs.
Well,
At a technical level. Also, they promised all the European, Interpol and everybody else that was involved in this, like some action, but the DEA just stole all their thunder. And when me and Tamer didn't rat, and they didn't get any of the European connections except this guy, Johan Bovens, who got a rat, gypsy dude out of the Netherlands. He fucking ratted. Other than that, they didn't get any of the connects. So Interpol ended up with Bupkis. And that caused like international friction, which was one of the reasons why they were pressing so hard. The other reason that they were pressing so hard is Johan Bovens fucking debriefed in the Netherlands. He found out that the head case agent was named Bill Linehan. And he said, yeah, I'm working for Bill Linehan, DEA agent. And said that I identified myself as a DEA agent. That was his defense over there.
Man.
So they came, by the time they figured out that was nonsense.
How long was your trial?
6 weeks was the first trial.
You had lawyers then?
Yeah.
When you defended yourself?
When I defended myself, we didn't actually make it to trial. I won in Frank's hearing.
You what?
Pre-trial hearing.
Oh,
yeah, we got a Frank's hearing, because the judge, after the hearing, was like she was going to have to consider sanctions. And that's when the government came and offered me 20 for everything. Remember, I got 30, and I'm on appeal for that 30. I'm looking at life. They offered me 20 for everything. I said no. 17 and a half for everything. I said no. 15 and a half for everything. And I was going to say no, but my appeal attorney, who is great, his name's Charles Sevilla. I write him every Thanksgiving for helping me save my life. I mean, this dude is just a gem. He's out of San Diego. He was the best in the business. He sent me a case where the misconduct wasn't as bad as mine, and the guy got off, dismissed with prejudice, did no time. And then he sent me 2 more cases of where the misconduct was worse than mine, and the dudes were still in. The first case where the dude got off was credit fraud. The other 2 cases were big drug cases. So big drug cases make for bad case law. Any honest appellate attorney will tell you that, right? The same way I lost my double jeopardy appeal after the first trial. Before the second trial, I tried to win double jeopardy so I wouldn't have to go on the second trial, and I lost it. And they totally just copy and pasted the government's brief, in their opinion, and mistakes and all, calling Rolex watches Cartier. I mean, and these might seem like a stupid thing, but the government didn't have a lot of evidence on me other than the rats. So these details were important, and that's ultimately why I ended up winning my appeal in the government. Because we were having that Frank's hearing at the same time I got my remand on the 30 years. So the government folded, so I took they said no further prosecutions. So I took the 15 and a half, no further prosecutions. And
that was for both cases?
That was for everything, yeah.
Everything.
C1C, global plea deal. You know that one where the judge agrees before you plead guilty. 1 sentencing, not 2. Everything done. 188 months. And so I said, okay. I withdrew all my motions, had my CCE case transferred back to my first judge because I was on limited remand. to him. I couldn't move that case to Judge Snyder because of jurisdictional issues. So I agreed to move my Judge Snyder case to Judge Lou, and and had one sentencing. But before that, Tamer comes out on the rec yard, and he's like, they're not giving me the deal. They're taking me to trial. They're going to try to max me out, 40 or 50 years. And I was like, so I came back in from playing basketball in the rec yard, came back in and got on the jail phone. The phones at MDC have that little four numbers, which phone you're on. And also there's a sign that says this is being recorded, but these dumb fucks still talk on the phone. There's a fucking, in capital letters, a sign right in front of your nose on every phone that says this is being recorded, and these dumb fucks are still talking on the phone.
Great.
Anyway, so I call Tamer's lawyer. I say, hey, I'm on this phone number, this phone at this time. He's like, well, I was like, so the government can find it if they want to hear what you're going to tell them I just said. He's like, what? I said, if they don't give Tamer the same deal as me, I'm not going to plead guilty next week. So he told them, and they took away my deal. I had to reinstate all my motions, everything, but I couldn't leave my boy. He didn't rat on me. I couldn't leave him. We beat the prisoner's dilemma together on that kind of case, which is unheard of. Also with Jin, he should get credit. And also, I forgot there was Lance White in the first trial. He didn't rat. Dwayne Sanker in the first trial, he didn't rat. Like, these were smaller, lesser guys, minimum role type dudes. But, I don't think of them as often because they really weren't. They were on the same trial, but, I didn't know them before trial, but they should get credit for not ratting. I forget to mention them. Somebody reminded me of that. But as far as the dudes who were looking at big time, me, Jin, and Tamer were the only ones who didn't rat. Everybody else ratted. I mean everybody. And even people to this day who I don't know who they are. We had like 17 confidential sources.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
anyway,
3 weeks later they caved and they gave Tamer the deal.
They didn't give it to Tamer. You took everything back.
3 weeks later, they caved.
That's a bold move. Not many guys would do something like that. So I got to commend you for that. And that's proof, okay, that, when you stand up for the other guy and don't leave anybody behind, you could win.
Yeah.
But most people opt out and fucking rat.
Yeah, it's.
So now here you are. Now you're back at square one. So
well,
now you and Tamer. So now what happened?
3 weeks, I reinstated all my motions. I was filing to move my case back to Judge Snyder, the CCE, and then the government caved. They said, okay, finally. Because I had a lot of motions that they didn't want to deal with, specifically on the wiretaps. So they had a machine called the T2S2 machine. And then there was an optical disc bank that's attached to it. So every different wiretap number, they'd record onto an optical disc. But I found out that they were not recording directly to that optical disc. They were recording to the hard drive. And then that optical disc became a copy, actually. Especially according to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act that just come out that they just passed. It's their own shit, So Title III says that you have to seal the original recording. Well, they didn't have the original recording under seal, not just in my case, but in anybody's case at that time.
Okay, no.
So they didn't want a ruling on, that was one of the things that they didn't want ruling on. Some other motions I had, hey, there's supposed to be an equal playing field. They take you to court, right? Make you sit there all day and you can't have your legal work and you're up at 4 a.m. and you get a bagged lunch and you can't do any work and then they take you to court 2 p.m. I wanted a motion that the government couldn't use a computer. I wanted a computer or an order that the government couldn't use a computer in its prosecution against me because I wasn't allowed one, and that they would be forced to wake up at 4 a.m. and not be able to refresh their memory with any documentation related to my case before the hearing because that was the circumstance I was put in order to represent myself. I had all kinds of stuff like that.
Now, another guy who never ratted, from my belief, was Sean Atwood.
Yeah,
He's
good.
out of London. Great guy, but he was in Arizona. I don't know, were he and Sammy together?
They were fighting.
They were fighting,
They were fighting.
but they
So
were both in the ecstasy business.
yeah, Sean's a good dude from all. I don't know him personally. I had a couple exchanges with him on Instagram after that Sons of Ecstasy thing came out, uh, with him and Gravano talking about their war and stuff like that. And because his dude Schooley was buying from our guy, mine and Tamer's guys in LA, and Pappas and Gravano's kid were buying from this dude called Andre Wagner, white boy, who was a rat,
Yeah.
right? Who was buying from my main rat, Monir Deary. So like both of them were buying from us at a point in time. Sure, you know, they got some, Gravano's kid got some shit out of New York at some point, and Atwood later on and went and got his stuff directly out of Europe because he had there was a price. He was in a war with Gravano over that territory. That's also funny because Bobby Stewart, another one of our rats, he had Four Aces entertainment company. We threw the first raves out there in Arizona. We started that market, right? And left it behind because it didn't make sense for us anymore to sell 20, 30, 40,000 pills on a weekend out in the desert, right? Like, so we left that behind, and that's what Atwood and Gravano picked up on and end up fighting over, and they're both buying from us, which we didn't know. Like when I saw Gravano got busted, I saw we had pink shaped Pentagon pills was one of our things at the time. And first thing I did was call Tamer and say, how the fuck did this rat get our shit? Like I saw it on the news. That's how I found out. Sean, if I would have known that it was Gravano and his crew buying from us, I would have stopped it and they wouldn't have had no fucking product to compete with you. Sorry about that, brother, but he was just so far down the line that I didn't know.
It's
Anyway,
funny,
wish you the
Sammy
best.
went away on the ecstasy, though. He
Tamer?
did. No, Sammy.
Yeah, Sammy went away on that.
Yeah, he did do his time on that.
Yeah.
Didn't rat on nobody there, huh?
Doesn't seem like it, but I mean, I heard they had him at the cheese farm, right? Over there at FCI Phoenix, that little, they have the cheese factory. They have one at Otisville. They have one at FCI Phoenix. They got half the yard at USB Tucson, right?
The one in Texas, right?
Yeah. No, in Arizona, USP Tucson, half the yards of fucking special needs are basically high-powered child molesters. Fucking diaper sniper scumbags. But they have a few like really nice ones. One is just outside FCI Phoenix.
Well, there are a few prisons where they put people who have been rats.
Yeah, like high-power rats,
Yeah.
WITSEC rats. So Gravano was in one of those where you get conjugal visits, you got PlayStations, you got all kinds of shit. The cops who work there, they rotate because they're still part of like in Otisville, they're still part of the federal correctional institution. So they rotate. So you'd get cops who worked in there and then they'd be on the unit and you talk to them sometimes and they tell you these dudes are just fucking horrible, man. They tell you all the shit they had, and the cops had to put up with a lot of shit from these dudes because the government was always protecting them, and they couldn't really do what they could do to us, throw us in the shoe or transfer us to another prison. So these dudes in WITSEC kind of had leverage while they were in prison because there wasn't so many remedies for the cops to do shit to them.
Man.
So they didn't.
Well, we had a lot of petties at Lompoc.
Oh yeah, fucking diaper snipers. All the lows, like the lows they're fucked up with that.
Well, that wasn't a low. That was a medium we were at.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
It was a medium.
FCI.
FCI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
What happened, they were going to make Lompoc all petties. So they had a whole lot of them there.
Yeah.
They thought they were going to develop a program to try to change them.
When I first came in, if there was a diaper sniper coming on the unit, the cops would basically give you the paperwork because you don't trust the cop. They'd give the shot callers the paperwork, and it was an honor who got to this motherfucker first, right? Like that was a thing that guys were looking for to score points, right? And, hey, he got him before he could even get his roll to his bunk, and then as the years went by, and then, even if you got in trouble, the lieutenant and shoe lieutenant before your hearing in the shoe would come around and tell you what to say about the write-up. There was a procedural error, a technical error to get rid of the case, and you'd go back to the main line. And, that was one of the things the convicts, I won't say inmates because not every inmate's a convict, but the convicts and the cops saw eye to eye on that, right? And then as the years went by, I noticed this the last few years because I was in Lompoc with you, and then I went to Coleman Low to do the drug program, and then I was released. They stopped doing that, and they started protecting these child molesters and gave them status. If you beat them up for being a child molester, you could get 5 years added to your sentence. Right? Just like if you beat somebody up for being a race or a religion, that's a hate crime, right? They actually gave these motherfucking cocksuckers status. And the craziest part is me and you can't get a Playboy, right? Pornography.
Right.
But they could get a Baby Gap fucking catalog.
Yeah.
And if you take it away from them, it's fucking interfering with the mail, another charge. And they can have their discovery if they've got an appeal going with all their fucking images. I mean,
you remember the guy Cooper? He was in my unit.
I don't remember.
And I was always leery of anybody who self-surrenders. Okay, so I was out reading in front of my unit one day. He was a good-looking guy, big head of hair, and he comes walking, self-surrender. And he came right up to me. And I said, this is a little fucking funny,
I remember that. I remember this story. You told me it when we used to walk the track all the time together.
So anyway.
It's one of the first stories you told me.
So he came right to me and got friendly, but he was in the same role as I was in. And one night, remember the biker Zimmerman?
Yeah.
He was freaking Jewish. He spoke better Italian than anybody I ever knew. I think his mother was Italian, or his father, or something like that. And I'm talking to him one night, and this Cooper comes and says, they stole my watch and my radio. Now, we left our lockers unlocked. Okay? And right away I looked at him, I said, get the fuck away from me. Because right there I knew somebody knew. I said, get the fuck away from me. And then next thing you know, one of the Pisces beat the shit out of him. And they transferred to Pisces. And they put this guy in a shoe for a week and then brought him back.
Yeah.
This guy, and I looked it up. He was from Hawaii. He took his grandson to San Francisco. His grandson. On the flight back, he was molesting his grandchild. The stewardesses caught him. That's how he got arrested. Now here he is. His wife moves from Hawaii to Lompoc. I don't know why these petties, they got money. It's like we're seeing with Epstein and Diddy and all these. All these people got a lot of money. And I can't understand what the fuck's in these money people's head. I'm talking billionaires. And this guy, and I remember having his wife would visit him every visit day. And he couldn't understand why his son wouldn't talk to him. Well, you fucking molested your grandson, you asshole. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah.
But it's really disgusting. There should be a special prison for these guys.
No, they should be fucking, first of all, if you're going to let them out, you got to castrate them. You can't let them out.
No.
Think about it. If somebody told you, Ori, we're going to let you out of prison and you can have sex with whoever you want, but just no women. That's what you're telling a diaper sniper.
Right.
We're going to let you out, and you can have sex with anybody you want, just no more kids. But, It's the same thing as telling us we can't have sex with women, or telling a gay guy he can have sex with whoever he wants as long as it's a woman, or telling a lesbian they can have sex with whoever they want as long as it's a man, right? Like, but no women. Like, that's what you're doing. People have to understand that. So even if they do have some kind of sense of right or wrong or morality that they picked up, which most of them didn't, right? All they need to do is fuck up once out of 100, and some kid's life is ruined. And they all fuck up way more than that.
Right.
You know, fucking diaper snipers. They're just the fucking worst.
So Lou, you made it out of prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long did you get off for your taken off for the drug program?
I got a year off my sentence,
They give
and
a
I
year?
got, and remember that, I think it was First Step Act or whatever had come out, and or Second Chance Act, one of them, and they extended the halfway house time to a year. 6 months home confinement, 6 months halfway house. So I'm getting 10 months. I always tell people I was in for 12 years, but technically I was in custody for 13, because 6 months of it was home confinement,
Right.
and 4 months of it was halfway house. But I wasn't behind the wall anymore, so I don't count that time. That's why I tell
Now,
people
what
12 to
tattoos
13.
did you get at Lompoc? I remember the guy who was a friend of yours.
Oh yeah, he overdid a bunch of the stuff that I already had, and he put this tattoo in here, which is a girl in a teardrop looking through the prison bars, and this tattoo right here, which is, you know, kind of a Mexican tattoo of the payasa face with the shh, be quiet, and he put this tattoo, which is like the Tony Montana chair with an ecstasy pill sitting on
yeah?
it and a crown on top of it because I was the king of X. And the base is kilos because it was built on kilos of cocaine.
He was good, that kid.
Yeah.
Remember, you almost
Yeah, from the
you,
IE.
you,
He was
you
from
set
Inland
me
Empire.
up. He said, "No, don't worry, you don't have to pay him." And I came very close, and then I said,
Yeah, no,
"No."
he was a good.
Yeah,
The Serranos were good, you know. I
they
mean,
were
I,
good
I,
there.
I, I liked them. I got
Yeah.
along with them. I got along with almost everybody. Like, I just didn't like the fucking rats or the fucking diaper snipers.
I was in MDC Los Angeles maybe a little over a week, but I'll never forget when the day I got arrested in the bullpen, and then I said, "Okay," I took the extradition to New York. We found out it was a Colombo crime family indictment. But I'll never forget, the first unit I ever go in was MDC Los Angeles. And when the door opened up and they brought us in, boom, a white Aryan boy came right up to me. "You white?" I go, "I'm Italian." He said, "Come with me." And, and then they had the black, the Spanish. People don't realize prison is probably one of the most segregated places in the world.
Yeah, especially in California on the West Coast. I noticed the racial tension when you get to the East Coast is much less than it is in California prisons on the West Coast. Now in the penitentiary, it's always high racial tension. But I noticed like at Otisville, it wasn't as segregated as it was in the West Coast. I also Louisiana. I was in Oakdale, Louisiana, when that's actually a funny story. Bernie Evers, the MCI WorldCom guy. Remember that?
The MCI?
MCI WorldCom. They broke up AT&T.
Yeah.
So this dude, he gets locked up for all this fucking fraud and fucking shit, right? He comes on the yard. I was at Oakdale, Louisiana. I was in, I don't know, 8-9 years at this point. And, so I start talking to him, right? Bernie Evers, he was like billionaire, and he's supposed to be, this super sharp guy. And I'd seen him on TV, on the news, stock market, this, that, before prison. Anyway, he comes on the yard, and everybody, you know how everybody has to have a job. I always got a job that I didn't have to do, right? Pay the head orderly or whatever. But so this guy gets a job in rec, and he's going to be the softball scorekeeper. This motherfucker could not keep score in softball. So if you guys want to know for a fact, I'm telling you that dude was innocent and was the biggest fall guy in the history of fraud cases in United States history, because there is no way that he figured that out on his own. Bro, they didn't want to hurt this old man's feelings, so they had a second guy keeping the real score on the, just filling in the boxes, right, for softball. And so he could sit there with the fucking pencil. This dude was a fucking idiot, bro.
Really?
Just dumb as a box of rocks. There is no way that he made $1 billion fucking fraud scheme up and carried it out. He was definitely a fall guy.
Man, that shit. What year was that? The AT&T. That was quite a few years ago.
That was before I was even into the business.
Yeah.
But that was what MCI WorldCom did. I don't know. I think that was at 97.
Okay, now I want to talk about, because MDC, I was only there a week before the marshals took me to Con Air and flew me to Brooklyn. But I'm comparing MDC Los Angeles with MDC Brooklyn. You heard all the war story about MDC Brooklyn. It's a terrible freaking
You guys have two of them there, right? You have an MCC and an
We
MDC.
they closed the MCC. They closed that. That was worse than MDC. All right? And MDC was horrible when I was there. And that's where Diddy is now. But he's in a special housing unit. It's sort of a special housing unit with only 20 inmates. The average norm is 120, 160, something like that there. But, MDC, I remember in Los Angeles, they had a patio with a basketball court out there.
And a cage over
Yeah, yeah. And you go out and get sun.
Yeah.
MDC Brooklyn, you don't see
you could get a crack of sun for a couple hours a day.
you don't see the sun at MDC Brooklyn.
I heard there's a roof though, right? You get to the roof once in a while?
No, you can't go to the roof.
There's nothing like that?
No.
Oh, was that at MCC they had the roof?
Maybe MCC, I'm not sure. I wasn't there. That was on Pearl Street, right where the courthouse is, actually. But,
well, look, you were at MDC in both of them, right? And Epstein, he was at MDC, right? So there's no way he killed himself. Right?
No way.
So I've been in the shoe. There's just no fucking way.
No
Camera's not
fucking
working.
way.
Especially not coming off suicide watch when you're supposed to be in the paper suit.
Right. And he was going to have a bail hearing in 2 days.
Yeah. You don't even have a fucking, when you're on suicide watch and the first couple of weeks when you get off suicide watch, they have somebody watching you the whole fucking time, right? Sometimes it's an inmate, but they give you a paper suit.
Yeah.
Like they don't even let you have clothes. It's a paper fucking jumpsuit. And just no fucking way. Also, they have a thing where they got to walk and check that fucking thing that they check on you every, 30 minutes or whatever in the shoot? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just no fucking way on God's green earth that dude. Plus, hanging yourself in that cell.
Here's my theory.
What did he do? Put the thing around his neck and jump off the top bunk doing a somersault and hold his fucking knees up so they didn't hit the fucking ground? Come on, bro.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I got to agree. Michael Franche said the same thing. Okay, so I agree with Michael. We're all on the same thing.
I've been there.
We've been in prison.
I listen to all these people who haven't been in MDC, haven't been in a shoot. They can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
I've been there. You've been there. There's nobody I know that's ever been there that would say that was possible.
Right.
It's just not fucking possible. Impossible.
But here's my theory. Who visited him 2 days before? Bill Barr, the U.S. attorney. No. Why does the U.S. attorney himself go visit? You got the FBI, the DEA, Homeland Security. You got all these government agents underneath you, and you go yourself.
Well, I think his thing is that he just became too much of a liability. He had dirt on Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah.
And, when you make enemies on both sides of the aisle, right? Just like Kennedy made enemies with the mob and the intelligence agencies. It doesn't matter who you are.
Well, here's my theory. Bill Barr, really intentions to go there to visit him, was to get the layout exactly so they could set up whoever they sent in to do it. Because I don't think they get another inmate.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard people say all different kinds of things about who was behind it, but I think it was one of those things where I'm sure he probably worked for all the intelligence agencies at one point or another as a source. Now, people always say that, oh, he was a CIA agent, oh, he was a Mossad agent, he was this. Mossad, CIA, MI6, all these intel agencies, Chinese military intelligence, they look for dudes like that to use as a source. It's
Well,
not that they're
the Mossad more so. Okay.
they look for people who are in those positions because they're access agents. They already are in touch with all these different people. So they look for these kind of people to use them, but they don't create those kind of people. And they're not like payroll fucking employees, right? Like, and every intelligence agency would be able to access information from Epstein if he had something they wanted. And when you look at his client list, every intel agency on the planet had interest in the people he surrounded himself with. Now, besides that, he's got powerful in America Democrats and Republicans who are visiting his island. Nobody wanted the dude around. Period. So my bigger question for people is, rather than who did it, can you find me somebody who wouldn't have wanted it to happen?
You turned it right around.
Yeah, find me somebody who wouldn't have wanted it to happen. And, you know, that would be an interesting conversation because I can't think of anyone. Certainly not the cops. Certainly not his victims. Certainly not the intel agencies. Certainly not the DNC or the RNC. I mean, who would have not wanted that to happen that was in a position of power or influence on that situation? And when you find yourself in that, if you ever find yourself in such a position that there's nobody that would rather see you alive than dead, I got to tell you, my friend, your days are fucking numbered.
All right, talk about it. Did you follow the Diddy case?
Yeah, I followed the Diddy case. I thought his lawyers were fucking horrible.
You, Mike, shake hand. We're on the same page.
His fucking lawyers
All right?
were horrible.
They were horrible.
Horrible.
All right? I told them from the beginning. I had a lot of haters on my channel. I don't know. I can't look at the channel. I don't know what's going on over there. But I tell the truth. I tell the facts. I've been there. I know in D.C. Okay? And every day, you think they're going to put him in general population in a prison?
Yeah, I think it'll be some place like a Fort Dix or some shit like that. Some low, maybe camp with a management variable.
No, I don't think he'll go to a camp.
Well, you never know. Ghislaine Maxwell's at a camp now. You never know. I mean, look, the dude still has friends and influence, more so now that he was found not guilty of the big charges. He's only looking at 4.5. He's already got a year in with the drug program. He's going to do fucking, a year and a half more and he's home.
Yeah.
So, he's got money. People are going to fucking kiss his ass in prison and out. You never know. Everybody's going to want to do a favor for the dude. But even leaving that aside, listen, if he did the things that they say he did, the RICO stuff and this and that, he deserves to go to prison for a long time. Fuck him. But he was found not guilty. You got to take that at face value. The evidence was tried and he had shitty lawyers and still got found not guilty. And as far as the sex trafficking thing, that's not child molesting. That's not rape. That's bringing hookers who were paid over state lines. Diddy's got hands himself. He's no punk, right? I don't even think he's going to get lightweight taxed. I think people are going to be fucking, you know, wanting to take pictures with him and fucking buying photo tickets and kissing his ass. I don't see, you know, Gotti was in a different situation. He got taxed. He was high profile. He was in the pen though, you know, I mean, and then when he stopped paying the AB, they let the blacks beat the shit out of him. You know, I mean, it's a different thing. Diddy's going to be in a low security, possibly a camp. Diddy's got hands that Gotti didn't have. You know, Diddy can fight. He's not a punk. You know, whether you like him or not.
Well,
You know?
I call him Punk Diddy.
Well, yeah, but he's not a rat.
No, he's not.
He's not. And
As far no,
and he's not scared to fight.
Everybody's saying he's a rat, and I'm telling people, show me who we ratted on.
You know the rules. You're going to call somebody a rat. We need the paperwork.
Yeah.
Who do you rat on?
Right. Show me the paperwork.
He beat his case. He went to trial. You got to respect
Not
that.
one person. Thousands of people, but not one person could show me where.
Yeah, where's the
We
paperwork?
read it.
Where's the paperwork?
So
That's what I want to see. I want to see somebody who's locked up or says he ratted on him. You know, because they say, oh, he ratted, but not on his case. Okay. The prison system is a small community. Where's the dude that he ratted on something else that can say, hey, yeah, he ratted on me? Like, it always comes out. So
you heard of Jimmy Henchman?
no.
All right, Jimmy Henchman, his real name Jimmy Roseman. He was he was real Haitian boy gangster. Okay?
Oh, the Haitians are no joke.
Yeah. And he's doing life. But he tried proffering several times. I knew Jimmy well. Jimmy actually, it was Jimmy many years ago, introduced me to Diddy at a nightclub here in Hollywood.
I met him. I could tell you a funny story about Diddy and Tamer. And every time I tell this story, I wish it was me. We were in Vegas. I met him through this girl, Janelle Bennett. And then I was actually at his 50th birthday party.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I didn't stay late. Nobody invited me to that. I didn't know anything about it.
Oh, you don't go to the...
You hear rumors, whatever, but every after party at big parties you
Yeah.
do. Like, I didn't pay no mind to it. But yeah, I was at the table with Too Short and Snoop smoking weed. You know, I really didn't know anybody there. Like, I knew this Australian kid, PC, there, and a few other people there. But I met, like, Kobe Bryant there. I met a bunch of people there. It was a pretty cool night, and I was home by 11:30, 12 o'clock. But we were in Vegas when we were rolling, like, deep in the ecstasy game. And we're at the fucking playing craps at the Mirage or Bellagio, one of them. And, you know, girls all around the table, and me and Tamer are having a good run. Diddy comes up with his little crew, and he's looking around, and our table was where the action was. So he comes up and, you know, pulls out fucking a stack of cash, and he's like, money play. And he's losing money, right? And then he calls for a marker. And Tamer fucking pulls a knot out of his pocket and says, hey, bro, you little fucking light, you need a loan, and threw the money across the table. Because he was coming there trying to show us up. He didn't realize, like, we all had $100,000 and a money belt on, plus all the stacks and all the boys. He walked into the wrong thing. And this is when, you know, big J-Lo, everything, like, it was, you know, he just walked into the wrong. He misjudged what he was wrong. I'm not the wrong thing, but he misjudged the crowd that he was walking into, and you know, he just looked at us and probably just thought we were some lambs or whatever. Didn't realize. But yeah, that was pretty funny. Tamer fucking did that. That was fucking hilarious.
Anyway, you know, people keep asking me if the feds want anything more from him. I don't think so. I think they're through with Diddy.
Well, they lost their leverage. His sentence is 4.5 years. Judge gave him the minimum. If they would have given him 15, then maybe they could press him some more. But the dude stood up. And listen, I'm not telling anybody they should like him or not like him. But you have to call it what it is. The dude got a case, and he stood up, and he didn't fucking rat, and he went to the box, and he got found not guilty on a fucking RICO charge.
Who could he rat on? They say Clyde Davis. Nobody cares about Clyde
I don't know. I think I'm sure there's people everybody could rat on. Diddy's going to know a bunch of gangsters, active ones. He's got them around him. He's gonna know about bodies. He's gonna know about shit over the course of
Well,
his life. Like,
he knows about body.
yeah.
I don't know if anybody's alive that knows anything about it.
But bodies will always get you out.
If he knows.
Yeah. Bodies always get you out.
Yeah, but we're talking about bodies that he may go away.
But also he's got money, he can do things like find a fucking Taliban dude, pay him to send an investigator to Afghanistan, pay a Taliban dude a couple $1,000,000 for a couple stingers that don't work anymore, and offer to give them back to the US government. I mean, there's all kinds of shit you can do. He's got resources and everything. I just don't see, until somebody shows me paperwork on him, I'm just can't hear that he's a rat. To me, he stood up. And again, I'm not telling people what opinion they should have of him one way or the other personally, because that's personal to people.
Yeah.
But as far as from a street level, that
But
dude's...
from being a woman beater, that we know he is.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
like that. It's not
All
my
right.
thing. So
All right.
I don't like that.
So I think that could cause him a problem with somebody that wants to be a hero in prison.
I don't see it unless he runs into
No.
one of her relatives or something, because more people are going to want to be friendly with him than are going to care about that
Because of the
at a
money.
low security joint. You know what I mean? Just like me and you were on the yard when we were close to going home, they put us in a fucking yard with child molesters hoping that we'd fuck up, right? They didn't put me anywhere near these fuckers before that, right? Like same thing when I was at Coleman for the drug program, loaded with fucking child molesters, right? Like, so when you're on a low security,
Coleman was?
yeah, Coleman Low. When you're on a low security joint,
I'm
you got all
surprised
child
you didn't meet
molesters and rats.
Carmen's son was there.
No, he was in the pen.
Oh, he was independent.
It's a correctional complex, FCC. So they have a pen, 2 pens actually, and low and a camp. So I did the drug program at the low there. But when you get in these low security joints, right, like Diddy's going to go to, it's all rats and child molesters. Who's going to push a line on him? Nobody wants to go higher in security to a medium or USP. Who's going to push a line on him?
Right.
And like I said, the dude's got hands. Like, I've never heard of him backing down from a fight. So I don't see that he's going to have any problem, except maybe with the cops, depending on how he carries himself. But, look, bro, you can do a 1.5 years standing on your head in the fucking box.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already got half of it in already. And again, while I don't like what he did to Cassie, and I'm totally against beating women, and I don't like that personally, and that's fucking fucked. And I'm sure that behavior has manifested and existed through the course of his lifetime. As far as calling him a rat, I can't stand for that, because
Yeah, well, I can't. People have been calling him a rat all over. And
not without paperwork,
but
can't do it.
Nobody
Yeah.
got any proof.
The streets got to respect that he took it to the box
Yeah.
and was found not guilty and didn't rat. Again, you don't have to like him, but you have to call it what it is.
Any advice you'd like to share with the people before we
Not all money's good money.
Not all money is good money.
Not all money is good money. Took me a long time to learn that lesson. Cost me 12 years in prison to learn that lesson.
12 years.
Yeah. Ori, it's great to see you, man. It's been a
great
couple
to
years
see
since we've
you, I'll
seen each
tell
other,
you.
right?
Those days of Lampa, we had some good times there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember Iggy?
Yeah.
Huh? I wonder, he's still in.
Remember 50?
50, yeah. How's he
Yeah.
doing?
He's great. I talk to him all the time. He's
Yeah.
on Facebook all the time now, D'Artagnan McGee. He's got a couple jobs. He's working down at the Long Wharf.
We used to follow each other and
working at
stay
the
in
port.
touch.
He's a longshoreman now.
Oh, he finally got
Yeah,
there. Huh?
and he holds down 2 jobs. He's got his thing. I mean, here's a rolling 60s Crip who fucking really came home and turned it around.
Dan, that's good. I'm proud of him.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. I like him.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah, we had some good guys.
Yeah. A few. Most of them
few.
were garbage. Soto.
Soto. Remember the
Soto was great. I'm still friends with him.
Remember the white shot collar? What the hell was,
Skid.
what was his name?
Skid.
He was in my unit. He ended up, they caught him with a guy.
Oh yeah, in the shower.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that fucking shit is crazy. You see these dudes with the fucking banging another dude in the shower, getting a blowjob, and then go out to visit and kiss their wife and kids on the
Yeah.
mouth.
Iggy had 2 life sentences.
Nothing good happens in prison. That's my other advice. There's nothing to look forward to in prison. You can make the most of it. You can play sports. You can have moments. Like, we have moments where you have some good food, or you have a sports game that you're playing or whatever it is, or a workout, but nothing good happens in prison, and there's nothing to look forward to there.
I'll tell you, one of the best things that happened to me was my birthday, December 17th, and a couple of guys came to me and said, "What's your favorite dish?" And I love gnocchis. I said, "Gnocchis?" One guy said, "Well, I heard about them. We're going to make them for you." I thought it was bullshit. On my birthday, and it was a cold day. You know how cold it got up there at Lompoc at times. And then, all the tables that were set up between the 2 dorms, they made gnocchis that were freaking good.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, they made some crazy stuff. I mean, some of these
Yeah.
dudes were really... 50 was a cook, too.
Yeah, 50
He made
cooked
some
good.
crazy pastry shit there. Like, it was wild. But, yeah, I'm glad it's over, Ori.
I'm glad it's over, Lou, and I'm glad we're free, and we're neighbors.
And we're staying that
okay?
way.
And this is the way it's staying.
That's right.
I promised my kids.
That's the lesson.
All right, that's the lesson, all right? And I mentored a lot of young people to stay out of a life of prison, out of a life of gangs. It's not worth it. There's cameras. See all these cameras here? You got more on the street than you could count. And so stay out of a life of crime. I keep telling everybody. Lou, I want to thank you very much, okay? This has been enjoyable. We could stay here all day long
We'll do
and
it
talk.
again.
All right? But we're going to do this again, folks. Thank you, everybody, for coming.